now say will be on YouTube. So we can continue joking about dogs. Welcome, Robin. Welcome, Sarah. Ted and Peter. This is a good group. 3 of you returners, and Robin. We've got the newbie. Let's see. So we've got 4 people who probably won't definitely be here. 1 in Turkey, 3 in Japan. So they're probably not going to make it to a daytime or an American nighttime lecture. I think Epik said it was 3:30 in the morning right now for her. 6 hours ahead, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and she's taking both of my classes right now. Epik, you got my thumbs up for the diligence. And I have a woman in the Glaze class who is in England. So last week she stayed up until 1 in the morning just to start the class, and then we went for our normal hour and a half. So she was up late. So you guys have got it easy. Most of you are at least 1 hour back.
Great.
Yeah, Peter just had to leave work early.
Oh, not even. I've been off work for like 2.5 hours. Great.
Oh.
Came home, walked my dog, sat down, relaxed.
So yeah, for you guys who haven't met each other, so I'll go across. I'll just do your introductions for you. But no, this is because I've had a bunch of you. Peter, Ted knows, but Peter works at Heath Ceramics out in San Francisco. So then Sarah is a sculptor in North Dakota. Robin is a potter, also in North Dakota. Craziness. And Ted are you managing the art center in Florida, or are you just a volunteer?
The ceramic part of it, yes.
Very cool. And so yeah, Peter, Sarah, and Ted all took glazes. So now you're elbows deep in clay.
It's
and how?
So important.
Huh?
It's so important, and I spent so little time learning it before.
Well, I mean, it's that weird thing of that, I will say, educationally, it totally gets ignored. And that's why I do glazes first, because everybody gets interested in the surfaces, and the clay, I think it's a combination of that. Most people are using boxed clay, so they're not particularly interested in learning the clay part. The second, I think a lot of people are really intimidated by clay formulas, more than glazes. I think glazes, there's a feeling like I can mix up 100 grams, 500 grams, a 5-gallon bucket, and if I screw it up, it's easy to get rid of. If I make up clay and it sucks, I have a ton to get rid of, or a couple of 100 pounds, or anything like that, and so, you know, it's a bummer. So, what I think I will start the day with is to put Robin on the spot and ask how you're doing, only because 2 of this week's lectures are sort of repeats of what happened in the glaze class. So if you have any big questions, if not, that's totally fine, because then Peter's going to barrage us with questions specifically about the first lecture, I'm sure.
Right. Hi, Matt. Well, I loved that lecture last night. That was awesome.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and so I'm still trying to track down the right guy at the brickyard to get a chemical analysis of the Hebron clay. And the other big chore I have to do any of the labs, if I'm going to use native clay, which I plan to do, is to make a big batch of clean, plain Hebron clay.
Right.
Get it dried and get it crushed, so that I've got a big enough batch so that I can run tests.
That's, yeah, absolutely, and I think that the labs as set up, and this goes for everybody. I know that we sort of have this limited time, and we're trying to get everything done, but the clay testing, the real big bummer about clay testing is that it takes a long time. In between the mixing and the drying and the firing and all of that. So don't kill yourself to get it done. You know, if we get to the end and you're still testing and you've got questions, feel free to email me, because it is definitely a process. But I think that the testing that I have set up is going to be especially good for you looking at a clay that we don't have documented. And the lecture that'll come up next Monday, we talk a lot about the documentation and understanding of the chemical properties and the physical properties. Well, we're not going to have a lot of that for your clay, so it's going to come down to intuitive response, how you feel working with the clay, how you feel making changes to the clay to make it better.
Right. Well, on your diagrams of clay deposits,
Mm-hmm.
there's actually one black dot in North Dakota.
There is.
And it was under fire clays, which was no surprise to me. And it was in the Badlands.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that Badlands is to the west, southwest?
And south. It's between where Sarah lives and I live.
Because you're fairly western. I guess you're central western. I looked you up on the map.
Yeah. Sort of central western.
Mm-hmm.
We're on the west side of the Missouri River. So we're West River.
Oh, yeah, okay, so here, I'll share the map just so everybody can see it. So, yeah, right about there.
There we are, Sarah. that dot is actually closer to where she lives.
But, yeah, so that's a really coarse fire clay. And it's still that transportation. I mean, even coming down from the Canadian Rockies, that you still get the same transportation behavior. Settling through the Great Plains, and yeah, it just filters more and more, even from there.
Right.
Very cool. So you're comfortable so far with where we're at?
Yes, I am. I love it.
Good. Oh, good.
Yeah.
And are you up through the chemistry, or are you still in the geology?
No. Chemistry, no. Chemistry. I should have taken the glaze class first, and I will next time. So
everything that we talk about, that's why that this is probably boring for these three, just because we make sure to go through the basics of geology and chemistry from the start. So you're not missing anything from having not taken glazes, and I really try to not say that's just a glaze topic, we're not going to talk about it. So hopefully, if there's something you're not comfortable with, please feel free to ask.
Okay. Well, I'm good. I'll track down that chemical analysis and get on that this week. Okay.
Cool beans. Any other questions?
Not right now.
No?
No.
Okay. Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Not too bad. It's really warm here. Even though I'm in my sweatshirt, it's... God, how warm is it right now? It's supposed to be 74 on Thursday.
Wow. See, now, I think last year during the glaze calc class, it was 19 below here.
Yeah.
And today it's like 28, so wow.
Let's see.
That sounds really cold to me.
Oh.
Putting on my sweater if it's 80 out.
Are you one of those people that complains about San Francisco in the summer? It's too cold.
No, actually, I'm fine with it. I moved to Alaska for 6 months.
Oh.
I don't know. I went to Alaska once in August. That was enough autumn. It was just like autumn, even though it was early August. That was a bit much. Yeah, it's 45 degrees here right now. But yeah, Thursday. Oh, it's down to 72. Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to rub it in. It's El Nino. And how's your studio going, Sarah?
It's good. It's all good.
Good. And so where are you, since we didn't have you last week, where are you with clays right now in your studio?
So I use a boxed clay from Continental Clay, and that is just a red earthenware kind of thing. And it's okay. It's not fantastic. It's okay.
Right. That's a clay body for you.
But since I live a million miles away from it's 500 miles to the nearest place where I could get clay supplies. So, or
how
maybe
do you get them?
But with a truck.
You just go with a truck every 6 months, or?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So the thought of on one hand, I don't know if I'm necessarily interested in putting in the work to. I mean, Robin puts in a huge amount of work to make that clay. And I don't know if I want to necessarily do that, but it's kind of a bummer when the clay supply is so far away, and it's such a commitment because it's just like it's a ton. It's that 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot block that comes, and they deliver it to the edge of my driveway, and I haul it into my studio.
Oh, they'll deliver it to you at least. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. with a special charge because I'm so far away from anything.
Right.
But that's okay. I mean, you know, whatever. But
so do you want to be in a position where you can mix your own, or you
I
just
think
want
that
to?
I would love to know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would love to know how to do it well.
Mm-hmm.
And then make a decision from there. I'd like to know what I'm buying. You know, what is delivered at the end of the driveway.
Right, right. And how much clay? Because you have a lot of different sizes for your sculpture.
Yeah.
What sort of sizes are you working with?
Well, the bigger stuff I use Sold 860 that I get from the Aardvark Clay Company out of California.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I don't know, that's okay. But the rest of the stuff is just anything from, I don't know, maybe like small, tiny stuff is my bread and butter stuff, and then the big stuff is the stuff that I do because I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, then it's harder to ship, and you know, all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And do you have problems with the fired pieces surviving? Since I mean, you've got a lot of appendages, a lot of
yeah.
Is that an issue?
That is somewhat of an issue. I buy a lot of when the clay truck leaves, then the packing supply truck comes right after it. So I buy lots of peanuts and lots of boxes and, you know, lots of styrofoam and stuff like that to pack and ship stuff.
Right.
But that's okay. It's a good problem to have. I mean, you know, it's
Sure.
okay when people want to buy stuff. But it would be nice if I don't really. It's kind of a shot in the dark. You know, I have a printmaking degree. I don't have a ceramics degree,
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of started doing this as like, oh, look, this is clay is fun. I like doing clay, and then found an audience for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be nice to be able to ship stuff and not have that as much stress, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
so that I knew that I was probably getting the maximum amount of strength out of the materials.
Mm-hmm.
Sound about right?
Are you getting a lot of loss from your process, from building, drying, firing? If you could put a number on it.
If I could put a number on it, cracking probably,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe 15%.
Okay.
Yeah, not bad. I mean,
Okay.
but
It's
I
not
would
terrible.
love to. No, I'd love to have something that I could live outside too. You know,
Mm-hmm.
make a life-size greyhound dog about that big.
Yep.
And then have it live outside.
We will talk about that.
So
In
would
fact,
kind
I
of-
think Peter was asking about freeze, or was it Ted? Somebody was asking about freeze thaw earlier, and we will get there because it's a great subject. It's a challenge. It's never anything with a perfect answer, but yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
that would be the bee's knees.
I have a question. Sarah, Sarah, how much finished weight was your largest bison sculpture?
I suppose I used probably about 75 pounds of clay to make the largest bison, which is probably, maybe 40 inches. No, it's more like that. It's more like 30 inches. I would say about 30 inches long and maybe 20 inches high, something like that. And I used about 70 pounds to make it, and then I hollow it all out. And when it was done, it was probably about 17 pounds, I suppose. 15, 17 pounds, something like that.
On natural-looking legs, natural size, proportion legs.
Yep. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah.
Well, and that's that thing of I was saying before everybody showed up that coming up on next Monday's lecture that we'll really start to get into a lot of the properties that make clay be able to take abuse. And it sort of already came up with the lecture last Wednesday about green packing density, but we really get into what are the properties that we're looking for that make clay be able to build really well, to make clay be able to dry really well. Because that to me is the thing that's not really ever discussed when talking about clays, because I don't think it's well understood by most people. So we will certainly get there. So when, if you say you want to make your own clay, how do you see that happening for you, if you're interested in that?
For me?
Like a Soldner, an old dough mixer.
Yeah.
A
There
bucket.
you go. Whatever. Whatever it takes.
Right.
Whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
I got space. I mean, it's North Dakota. I got space, but
Can you hire a slave?
Yes.
Of course,
I can
hire and
hire a
slave.
Yes.
Because as I'm sure Robin can testify, the number one thing I will say, and I mentioned offhand, I ran a clay company for a number of years, and I was the sole employee of that. It's really great if you can hire a slave to mix your clay.
And I do. I have a guy who comes in every Monday. Yeah.
Good, because it's a ton of work, and it's not particularly gratifying for the amount of labor it takes. And I'm not saying to necessarily literally abuse anyone, but to have assistance for, if you're going to make a ton of clay, you literally have to make that ton of clay, and it's literally backbreaking. I mean, it can hurt you quite severely. So, okay, cool beans. Okay.
I don't feel for clay making guys.
Say again.
Our clay making guys, we got 3 of them. Brutal.
Yeah.
They're throwing out their back several times.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's why. I mean, unfortunately, Peter, your factory, and this is not having seen it, but having my wife work in a similar sized factory for a number of years, of the notion of having to touch the clay, no matter how much we have this wonderful philosophy about touching the clay and all that, the less that you can touch clay when you're making a lot of it, the better, because it's just so much work. I mean, even just lifting 1 pound of clay a few hundred times a day is painful work, can really do damage. I mean, from making clay, I have permanent nerve damage in my fingers because just the repetitive motion of making. I figure I probably made 300 tons of clay while I ran that company, and you take a beating. You certainly take a beating. So, Ted, what do you want to get from clay?
I just want to be clear in my understanding on how the chemicals work in order to produce the most plastic, the most structurally strong body. I really don't have any complaints with the ones that I'm using right now, which is a Cone 10 porcelain and stoneware.
Commercial?
No, I make my own.
Okay.
I've only made my own clay my whole life. From regular vendors, many of which you've already mentioned, OM4 and that kind of thing. But I'm interested in knowing how to evaluate the clay beyond the fact that it fires well and holds up. If there's a way of making a clay throw better, I would be interested, particularly with the porcelain body that I'm currently using, which uses an English kaolin, not Graulig though, it's a super
SSP.
standard. Yeah, SSP.
So you like whiteness?
I like whiteness, but I also work with stoneware, so I like darkness. I like to switch back and forth.
Sure, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. Do you mind sharing your formula? I mean, this will go on YouTube, so if you're not, that's
not at all. It's not. I just happen to have my book here, just in case that came up. I got the formula originally from Ceramics Monthly, and experimented with it a little bit and has changed it just slightly. I would use the super standard 55 pounds. The silica I use 28. The G200 HP 26. Wollastonite 4. I've been using bentonite. I'm not sure how interchangeable that is with bentonite, but I use 2 pounds of that and 3 pounds of V-gum. And I find it to be...
Wait, you're using bentolite and V-gum.
Yeah.
And you said 3 pounds of the V-gum.
3 pounds of the V-gum. I have to be honest. I think I've only once blunged the V-gum. I've always just put it in, dry mixed it, added the water, and gotten very nice results. in one of your lectures just recently, you were mentioning how you should mix it in the water first before you combine it with the rest of the chemicals.
Right. Well, part of that comes down to, let me pull this slide up, this whole thing about mixing, right? Everybody see the slide here?
Yeah, that's the one.
Where blunging is just one aspect of the mixing, but that there is a very clearly defined benefit of how you mix. Now, I go off on this, and we haven't even gotten to the lecture where I actually talk about mixing. But you know, my condition is always, this is the best way to do it. Get as close as you can to the best way to do it. But I understand everyone's limitations. You know, that it's not necessarily the best thing to do. With the V-gum, though, I mean, that's great that it's worked out for you. I would really consider blunging that or soaking it in the future, because when we talk about particle packing, we'll talk about how that really plays a major role.
Okay. Okay. By the way, I'm wondering whether when you talk about your past lectures, could you put a number on them? Because I guess it's my note taking. I've numbered the lectures, and I have no idea what day. At least off the top of my head, you were giving that particular lecture.
Okay.
It just helped me to find it really fast.
I will do my best.
Okay.
I'll try to remember. Sometimes I talk really fast and don't remember what I just said. But
well, I know you do.
Sorry, Ted.
I do have some questions which maybe would get answered at some point this evening.
Go for it.
On your lecture 3, when you were talking about density and performance slide, I was just curious as to how you measure workability. Is that just an arbitrary number?
Absolutely.
I go to the doctor's office and they ask me how much pain do you feel. Right. I have no idea how to rate it.
It is an absolutely arbitrary value that I attributed to it, and I think I mentioned that. What we will talk about in the lecture next Monday is the correlation between that arbitrary value and a very real value, which is this green packing density value. But what I sort of took, and one of the great problems that we have, and again, this will come up in a future lecture, is when we talk about problems with clay, no one has the same way of describing it. This came up last week where on the Clay Buddies Facebook group, somebody was complaining about their clay being short. And some fairly new people came in and said, what do you mean by short? I've never heard that term before. And one of the moderators came to me, you know, expecting me to have a definition, and I don't have one. In the lecture next Monday, I will come up with 2 different definitions from a physical, mineralogical standpoint of what short means, but we don't have that definition. So when I came up with this workability concept, I sort of sat down and made a list of all of the problems with clay. Okay, whether it is too soft, too floppy, whether it holds up being pushed around, you know, whether it's sort of green slumping, whether it will hold its shape, whether you can make a slab with it, whether you can whether you can build with it, you know, all of these considerations that when somebody says a clay isn't good, you know, how bad is that consideration? And I sort of put at the top of that post porcelains, because they are known to be the trickiest clays to work with, just from a straight workability standpoint. And there are different problems that earthenwares have versus stonewares versus porcelains, but generally porcelains are the ones that are difficult to throw, difficult to hand build with, difficult to keep from slumping. You know, all of these different conditions really apply to porcelain. And so, you know, I sort of put that as the bottom end of workability, all the way up to just that sort of easy stoneware that you're given that just works. Again, not a great definition, not that I have a wonderful definition, but it is something where something works or it doesn't, which is that intuitive knowledge that everyone does have about their clay. And that's one of those things, and you know, you all know me, that I love numbers and I love data, and I'm never one to say that there isn't data for something, but to a certain degree, you know, it's like a satisfaction survey. How satisfied are you with your purchase? You know, and it's sort of a ridiculous thing, but it's not an irrelevant factor. And when this isn't glazes where we can say, this glaze works, this glaze doesn't, you know, this glaze is chemically good, this glaze is chemically questionable, what is the condition that we need that is relevant? Okay? And so on that particular document, it does come up with workability as this concept. And it just sort of throws that in there. And again, based on porcelains are difficult to deal with, stonewares are easy to deal with. And this is just from a green standpoint. This is not from a firing standpoint. Firing is a whole other conversation. So does that answer the question? A long way around?
I understand what you're saying. I think I would have a hard time with the decimal points if I were to plot some things myself in coming up with where to put that particular point on the graph.
So your SSP body, if you had to rate it on how easy it is to work with, 1 to 10, what is it?
Well, the reason why I work with it is because it throws better, allows me to throw better than any other porcelain I've worked with. Yeah, the clay feels denser on the wheel. It doesn't feel quite so floppy. It gets floppy, but it always has, it feels a little bit more like stoneware as far as the density is concerned while you're actually working with it. Right. Obviously, it doesn't have the grog and everything else, and the larger particles. But I really liked it even better than the Graulig. And I've worked with Graulig bodies too.
Great distinction. Okay, not. I'm just going to go ahead and ruin a piece of. Well, no, I'm going to wait till next week. I'm going to wait till next week because that is important. Okay, the fact that it's better than Graulig to you.
Yes.
You know, that it still has floppiness, but that it is qualitatively better. That there are ways. Okay.
So to answer your earlier question, I'm interested in making this body even better if it's possible.
We can do that.
That's what I want to get from the class.
We absolutely can do that. You know, in the clay company, I had a ultra white porcelain that was based in SSP, but used other materials to enhance the workability. Now, you know, as I mentioned, oh, I've got Peanuts going to bed. Excuse me for 1 second, everybody. Come here, Munchkin. Come here. Come on. Come here. You want to say hi? Oh, say hi to everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
No, say hello. Can you say Merry Christmas? Can you say Merry Christmas? Come on.
Who's your favorite Ninja Turtle?
No, don't scream. Say Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Okay, Mr. Oh, I love you. Okay, go to bed. You like it? Okay. Good night, Mr. Ninja Turtle. Woo, 4-year-olds. Sorry if he screamed into the microphone. But that you can do that. Now, the one thing that I have said and will continue to say is that there is a condition. Okay? And that is we are always going to have to be aware that nothing can ever be everything we want. Okay? In that, you know, you can make something that may be incredibly white, and you can make it more workable. Does that necessarily mean that it is going to be the most workable porcelain ever? No, but you can definitely make it better. Okay, and it does. It comes down to this notion of how you balance the composition to get what you want out of it from a green state. The second part of the class will be how do we do it to get the most out of the clay from a fired state, because they are two separate things. But definitely we can get you there.
And that's the challenge, because right now I really like the way the glazes fire on it. They're super smooth. I wouldn't want to change the chemistry that disrupted that.
Yeah. The amazing thing is that because clays work as such a binary system, because clays work as that the composition is based in what are the clays and how much of them are there, and then that translates into moly, and what are the non-plastics and how much glass do they make, and those are the quartz and feldspar, that they are two completely separate processes. So you can change the green performance of the clay and not change the fired performance. Okay, because good. The clay mineral dictates studio performance, but the quartz and feldspar dictate fired performance. So it's really pretty great that we do have that level of control in clays. And I'm trying to find a picture to share, but I can't find it. So anyway, did you have another question?
Well, while I'm finding it, just a comment. I was listening to the chat session I missed, and you were talking about the scales. I did find the one that you were talking about on Amazon. I saw Uline mentioned and a couple of the others that were mentioned, but the one I'm picking up is $364, I think it is, dollars.
The price.
Yeah,
for the,
I think it's gone up since you you purchased yours, but
the O-House SP line. So yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say on the message boards, Peter. Just trying to pull it up on the message boards here. I don't remember which. O-House scale. There it is. Peter had pulled up a link to one version that was a single decimal point, a single significant figure that was 165.
Yes, you could get the one. You were mentioning that 2 was better, but I was mostly interested in getting that little hook that.
The hook is important. Yeah. I don't know whether the single significant figure has the hook. I assume it does. But
it didn't mention that it had the hook. It did specifically say that the one that I've ordered that's 2 decimals does have the hook. So that's what I was going for.
It's a total investment. Like, I get that, but especially when you're in the testing phase, especially if you want to look at stuff like density, it becomes really, really important to have high quality equipment. So good on you.
It does. I'm just looking right now.
It does have the hook? Oh, there we go. Peter just put the link in the chat from Scales Galore, where I bought mine from.
But it's only to 1 decimal point, right?
Is that yours?
Yeah, that's yours. Sorry.
Actually, I didn't get a Oh, well, no, this is just the generic. So you're looking at the SP.
Sorry, that's the right link. That was your link.
Yeah, that was mine. But you said you saw the hook listed?
No, I have to look again because I was looking at yours.
Okay.
The one that I found.
Here is.
I don't know. You could call them and ask, but
integrated. Well, it's got the shipping lock, which is good, because the way that they integrate the hook into my scale is with the shipping lock. It's actually the underside of the shipping lock has the hook. And we will get into how to do density measurements and all of that as we go. I know in the lab video I sort of flashed some of the equipment and sort of talked really quickly about what you do with that. But we will go over how to do density measurements. I'm just going to wait because fired density is even more important, and we haven't even gotten to talking about that, much less the green density measurements.
Okay. All right. Well, speaking of labs, the lab 2, are you looking for a specific formula that we would work with, and then we change the ingredients slightly in the hopes that we're making it better, or you want separate formulas?
I want you to take one formula.
Just one formula.
Right.
And then,
So take your formula, okay, and then have the triaxial. So one corner is just SSP, and yours is great because you've only got one clay in your formula.
But isn't that lab 1?
No, lab 1 was taking it and breaking out the individual constituents of the clay body and seeing what each thing added to the performance of the clay. This time, we're going to do it so that, looking at your recipe, the flint, the G200, the wollastonite, and the bentolite and V-gum don't change.
Okay.
Those will stay exactly the same in every single point you test. What you're then going to do is you're going to take your 55% clay, okay, and one corner is going to be pure SSP.
Okay.
One corner is going to be a pure other material. I would probably say you should go with Graulig. Okay, and the third corner will be a completely different material, a completely different kaolin.
Kaolin, okay, so EPK or something like that.
EPK, tile 6. If you want to try OM4, but it's probably not that productive for you to do that. Right. But yeah, pick another kaolin. So then what you get is every point on that triaxial. Here, I can pull it up because I've already got it open. Every point on the whoa, sorry. I shared the wrong page. Every point on the triaxial, right, will have exactly the same amount of. Oh, actually, that's the wrong one. Let me open this. Okay. So if you come into the porcelain formula, notice the way that I entered it here is that I have the same amount of flint and the same amount of feldspar on each point. Okay, so if you come down to the matrix, they all have exactly the same amount of flint and feldspar. Okay, and that's because, like I said, what really dictates performance is the clay. So we want to keep the non-plastics as set.
Okay.
Okay. So then what you have is 3 completely different materials. So for you, what I would do is one corner is SSP. Oh, I'll just leave that. No, SSP.
Boy, it's really hard to read it on my screen.
Is it too? Here, I can blow it up. I think I can blow it up. So one corner will be SSP, one will be Graulig, and one we'll say is tile 6, right? And then on each clay, you keep the same non-plastics.
Right.
Okay? So now when we come down to the triaxial, one corner here is pure SSP, the opposite corner is pure Graulig, and the third corner is pure tile 6. Now every other point in between here is blends between the other clays. So along the edges, like between these two, you're just blending between Graulig and tile 6 in different proportions. Okay? Then as you go up, this is just Graulig and SSP and Graulig. I'm sorry, SSP and tile 6 and SSP and Graulig. Then you've got this inner triangle that is a blend of all 3 materials.
Boy, I'm not seeing your arrow, so it's very hard to follow, and I'm not. I was wondering how you dealt with the middle.
Well, the middle is just all 3 clays together.
Equal amounts?
Well, no, if you look at the values here, what this spreadsheet does is that it breaks everything down into appropriate proportions. So tile 5 here is 33% Graulig, or 33% SSP, 11% Graulig, 11% tile 6. Okay? But if I come down to tile 12, can you see tile 12? Is that too small still?
Barely, I can, yeah.
So tile 12 is now 11% SSP, 33% Graulig, and 11% tile 6. So each one of these has different proportions of each of the 3 clays in the middle.
You said 11% for tile 6 on tile 12?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I getting 20.95 for tile 6?
Did you enter 55%?
I haven't entered anything. I'm just looking at what you're showing me.
I think your screen might have blocked up because I don't think we're seeing the same
Oh,
thing.
mine might have? Oh.
Okay. Got it.
Oh, okay. Stop sharing. Try it again. Hold on. Let me try one thing. Let me turn this down for a second. Turn that down. Oop, make myself all grainy. Okay. Let's see if I can share it again. Okay. Can you see tile 12 here?
Yep.
Tile 12.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. For it keeps going away.
Did it crash again?
All right. Now, all right. So tile 12.
No, you're good.
Okay.
So if you look at tiles 12, 13, and 14, they all have 11% SSP.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
But they changed. The Graulig goes from 12, it's 33%. 13, it's 22%. And 14, it's 11%. And the tile 6 does the opposite. Okay? So
Okay.
what you get then is different proportions of each of these clays.
Right. Right.
Okay? And this is the huge trick to testing clays, is to try how they all work together and then literally grade them on how you feel they did. Now, we will talk in a couple of days about how we can numerically document that, and I do value the numerical documentation, but what I find is that for a hand-working clay, for an artist's clay, that the grade you give it is just as intuitive as the numerical value. Okay, as the green packing density value, which is what's so interesting, why I have faith in green packing density, because there seems to be a specific correlation to how it feels to work with and how high the green packing density is.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I say make a pound of it and try it and give it a grade.
Mhm.
You know, just if you throw cups, throw a 6-inch cylinder over with each one of these and grade it, and you will start to feel how you will have very specific beliefs about each clay. And I find that we tend to be very honest with ourselves about what those feelings are, and you will be able to classify. You will see, because it is linear, you will go, oh, I did not like 21, I liked 20 a little bit more, I liked 14 a little bit more than that, I did not like 9. I did like 13, and so then you can come in and say, oh, I really liked something in between tiles 13, 14, and 19. And every time I've run this test with people, I find that there will be a grouping where there is something that you like, that you can hone in on.
Mm-hmm. I've seen the electron photographs that you've shown of EPK and Graulig.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe how SSP might be? It's either more like Graulig. Well, I'm sure it's more like Graulig since it's from the same country. But does it stack better or than Graulig?
From the same clay field. And again, well, I will give away some of next Monday's lecture.
Oh. I don't want to steal any thunder.
Oh, the thunder is stolen. No. Here, let me pull up the screen share again. No, share it. Okay, here is Graulig and SSP. Okay, and they are very interesting because they definitely have different performance. Mm-hmm. They have different green packing densities, which we'll get into the relevance of all that in this lecture, but they have different morphology, which is how we refer to the shape of the clay particle. The shape, the size, the width, the thickness, all of that falls under morphology. And they are different clays. But SSP is whiter. There is no doubt about it. And I sort of said that, I think, in one of these lectures where I sort of went off slandering Graulig for just being adequate, which is what it is. It's perfectly adequate. It is not good, nor is it bad. It has a lot more it can offer.
Okay.
But yeah, there's SSP. Oh, you want a little hint? Oh, there's the EPK. Oh, there's tile 6. But we're going to stop there. Stop looking, Ted. That's all you get for today. I'm just going to tease you.
Okay.
Don't worry. All in good. You're turning into Peter. Peter is my in good time we'll get there guy. Oh, Peter likes this.
Oh, I'm thrilled. Someone else is taking the brunt of it.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, I kept the two of you separate this summer, but now you come together, and so double the fun. Does that answer your question, Ted?
Yes. Yes. That helps. I can now better decipher that lab, I think.
Good. Did you have any other questions?
Would you be able to re-explain, just because you're here on the screen, how you measure density?
Mm-hmm. Well, first we have to talk about what the measurement of density is, right? Which is that it is the measurement of how much material you can fit in a specific area. Okay, and in general, density is measured in grams per centimeter cubed. So we have 1 cubic centimeter, that big, in a cube, okay, with 6 sides, and it's how much material can fit into that space. So it is the combination of weight and volume. So that is the number that density represents.
Right. But does the wetness of the clay determine how much you can pack?
We don't include wetness in density measurements.
Okay, so it's powder?
Right. So when we talk about doing this green packing density, when we get into it, the way we measure that is you mix up your clay body. I'm getting feedback from somebody. Try. No, it was you, Ted. I'm going to mute you just for a second because I was hearing myself back. And I'm also looking at your ceiling fan. Your camera's gone north. Here, I'll see if it. There we go. Oh no, I'm still hearing myself. Where's that from? Anyway, so oh, it was no, it's not Ted. Oh, it's somebody else. Now I'm just going to mute all of you and see which of you it is. The guilty party. Robin, muted you. Oh, I don't hear it now. Nope, I still hear it. I unmute Robin. I unmute Ted. Peter, you don't have headphones on. Oh, it was Peter. It was Peter. You got away with it for this long on your new computer. Guilty. Guilty. Shame. Shame. Anyway, anybody watch Game of Thrones? Okay. So the way that we measure density is it's very easy to measure density if you have got an incredibly specific shape. All you then do is you measure the volume, length times width times height, and the weight. Okay, and the two of those together will give you a density value. The problem is when you're weighing a chunk of clay that is random, there is subtlety to this shape. Okay, it's not a very specific thing. The way we have to do it is with an Archimedes density, which is what the hanging basket is for. The Archimedes density is we use the displacement of water to calculate the volume, okay, by doing the weight of the sample itself and the weight of the sample displaced. We'll talk about that. That's how you get to Archimedes density, okay? And so that's why the hanging basket becomes very important, because when you have it suspended in water or kerosene for green clay, all the pores are filled, so you're literally just weighing the material itself, which is then used to calculate the density, which we'll go over how all the numbers work in and of itself. But Archimedes density is incredibly accurate because you're actually measuring the exact volume of your sample. Okay? So now to your question of do you use the water? If you're doing a fired density, the measurement is very simple. You take your sample, fired, and you weigh it dry. Okay, you then boil the sample
Yeah.
in water, and people will do this for absorption. It's the same process. You boil it for a set period of time. Technically, the set amount of time is 5 hours, but 1 hour is fine. Okay, so you boil it, and then what you do is you do this suspended weight. So you have your scale up on a platform with a basket hanging from it, and the basket is in water. So you take your sample and you place it onto the basket in water, which then gives you the suspended weight. You then take it out and you put it on top of the scale, still soaked with water, and you get a saturated weight. And with those three values, dry, suspended, and saturated, you can calculate density, porosity, and all these other values as per Peter's question. So before you guys showed up, I was showing Peter this. There's a teacher named Walter Ivan Heath, who I'm friends with on Facebook, and he and I were discussing the problem that's currently going on with Custer feldspar. And he happened to have... Did my computer just freeze up? You guys can see it. Okay. Walter and I were discussing the problem that's currently going on with Custer feldspar. And I think... Hold on. Save. I think my Excel just froze up. Ugh. This new version of Excel is ridiculous. Sorry, hold on. Save. Whichever this is, Microsoft 365 on a brand new, relatively new computer crashes constantly. And it's just Excel. It's not PowerPoint. It's not Word. Anyway, sorry, I'm just ranting. Okay, can everybody... Am I still on screen share? No. Are you laughing at me, Sarah? Ranting at Microsoft. I know. Okay, so Walter had some of the Custer feldspar in both 325, which is the new mesh, and the old 500 mesh. So we wanted to see whether there were actually any changes, so I ran the density. So he fired the samples, I fired them, suspended weight and saturated weight. From that, you can calculate the volume, the open pores, the impervious portion, the porosity, the specific gravity, the absorption, and the density. Okay, just from those three weights, all of these calculations are you're able to complete. And we can go into all the math of these later. Like I said, I'll do a video just on density as we go. But you do get porosity and specific gravity and density, which are the important values from that. And that's both for green density.
About Custer or 200 HP?
Custer. We were looking at, well, because the thing with Custer now is Custer used to be 200 mesh, and right now they're only selling it as 325 mesh. They said their 200 mesh has gone down. Their 200 mesh mill has gone down, so they're only selling 325. And what is currently going on is a bunch of clay companies are using this as an excuse, as a reasoning as to why their clay bodies currently are having issues. So Walter and I were looking as to whether or not this is true. I guess I didn't really discuss the results. What I found, shockingly enough, is nothing. Okay, over here are my results, and basically the difference between 200 mesh and 325 mesh, I got a 0.87% variation in absorption, in a negative 0.67% variation in density, and that's just the percentage-wise. The actual values is my absorption went up 0.003, and my density went down 0.019. Both of those values are basically statistically irrelevant. Okay, it's just, that's nothing. So my current, the conclusion that I came to with Walter is that it's hokum, that these people are making excuses for other problems they're having. But need to do some more testing to actually confirm that. But that's the value you can get from fired density. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, my question, I guess, yes. I just was curious to know whether you thought it was still good to use in glazes.
Did I talk too much? Yeah.
No.
The density is good to use in glazes?
No. The Custer.
Oh, Custer? Yeah, it's fine. It's just a different mesh size.
Okay.
Although, if I were you, between you and me, even with all the problems, and I haven't even tried the SP or the EU, I don't even know what they're calling it yet, I'd go with G200. It's a much cleaner feldspar. Custer has a ton of mica in it, and especially in your clay body, which I see you're already using G200. In porcelains, Custer leaves a ton of spotting because it's just got this really dirty, naturally occurring mica that you cannot get rid of. Custer, it's okay, but I prefer G200. That's my feldspar of choice.
The HP version.
Any of them.
Okay,
I use the regular. I use the HP. You know, they're
but
all
you
good.
can't get the 200 anymore. That's.
Well, you can't even. You can't get any of them anymore. Did you know about this? Am I going to break your heart?
Well, I just want to know what I'm going to use. That's this. I'm making all my stuff from scratch.
HP is gone.
What's been put
So,
in its place?
the story. Well, this will come up on next Friday's lecture. So a week from this Friday, the New Year's Day lecture. That G200 was originally owned by one company. I forget which one. And then it was bought by Imerys. G200, the original product, was actually a blend of two different feldspars.
Yeah.
When the company was purchased, Imerys, the new owner, decided that it wasn't worth the money to truck the second feldspar, which I believe was about 30% of the composition. So they decided that they were just going to sell this new product. And that was remarketed as G200 HP, which they say either stood for high potassium or high performance. All marketing nonetheless, but it had a slightly different chemical composition. But actually they got rid of a lot of sodium. It went to more of a pure potassium feldspar, so that's fine. What has since happened, and this is all within like 4 years, is that G200 HP mine, the original G200 source, ran out. I don't know what their geologists are smoking, but as I understand, they literally got to the bottom of the mine, and there is no more to be had. So I don't know why they bought this mine and didn't have their geologists check out the reserves, but it's gone. So now what is happening is there is a new product, which I have not tried yet, which is called either G200 SP or G200 EU, and it is a Spanish, hence the SP and the EU, feldspar that they are importing. Peter's typing. He's got info.
At twice as expensive.
I haven't seen the price, and this is where I always falter. When I was running the clay company, I do the price of everything. But now, at school, I don't pay for anything, so, I'm bad like that. But I'm sure it will be more expensive. That said, as you can see, Peter put up in the chat that they have a $3,000 neodymium magnet at Heath to clean up their Custer, because it's a disaster. Custer is so dirty. Does it even make that much of a difference, Peter? You can unmute yourself. You better get a headset for next week, though.
Yeah, I'll go pick one up. It makes a pretty drastic difference, but we still get some spotting, which we market as natural variation. Lord. But I'll post pictures of the magnet and the material we've gotten just off of one press. We have to clean it every time we press.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
I mean, if Custer was clean, and I think it's it's near both Sarah and Robin somewhere out there. Mm-hmm. South Dakota, North Dakota?
South Dakota.
South Dakota?
Yeah.
It would be fine if it didn't have this mica, but, we have all these problems all the time where our porcelain at school, it just looks like a Dalmatian. Because you've got this white clay with just these spots of mica through it, and it's gross. But we will get into feldspar talk. The feldspar talk, unfortunately, is depressing. When I say things are depressing, the feldspar talk is super depressing. because basically my short version is you really should be using a potassium feldspar. There's only 2 of them. One of them's terrible, and the other one has disappeared. So,
You're just full of hope.
I am. I'm a little ray of Christmas hope. All I want for Christmas is a decent potassium feldspar. Anyway, so Peter, do you have questions?
Oh.
Yeah, I'll put that on the message board.
Back up a little. It's a little too in tight. Here, I gotta make you the present to everyone. Okay. Yeah, you're out of focus still. Put it on the message board.
Yep, that's the only way to do it. It's a lot of sludge. Yes. What was the first question I had? Ted took a lot of them. Thanks, buddy. You took the we'll get theirs. I don't have to hear it. First one. Your slide of green packing density. As you fired things, the packing density went up, which makes sense. The materials are getting smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Or more bound together, but there was a sharp change in the slip cast one.
Mm-hmm.
Was that just an anomaly, or is there something there?
Yeah, I'm just calling that a statistical anomaly. You can't make charts and graphs without having something go crazy.
Yeah.
Because that change in density doesn't reflect anything systemic, and both the other 2 went normal. It could have been a bad puck. It could have been a bad density measurement. I think these were probably measured by my lab assistant at the time, and he could have screwed it up. So, yeah, I would just call that. I would call that an anomaly. Blame the guy at the bottom of the ladder and move on.
Yeah, fair enough. Happens plenty. I was looking into tools for measuring relative density, and I saw pinkometers.
Pycnometer? Pycnometer? A helium pycnometer.
Are they actually affordable or no?
They're not even going to do what you want. A pycnometer measures what is called skeletal density, which is actually the physical hard density of the particles. And so you get a mass density of the particles themselves and not of the clay. We're trying to get density of the clay as a whole.
It is fun. I went around my plant after watching your studio performance lecture and looked at all our mixing methods. We do all 3. We do plastic mixing, slip mix, and a blunged and filter pressed. And I'm very frustrated that our plastic mix is crap, just like you said it would be.
You mean that's the performance that you see?
Yeah. There's a lot of warping with our plastic mix, which is, it makes sense. We don't have those same issues with the filter pressed clay or the slip mix. I don't see them at all. I don't know. Is there any way to make plastic mix clay better? Or is it just a crappy way of doing it, and it's never going to be any better than it is?
Okay, I'm going to mute you just because I can hear myself. Yes, you can make plastic mix better. Okay? It's never going to be as great as slurry mixed and filter pressed. But, again, not to give away too much that's down the road, but the order in which you batch, the method in which you batch, can have a serious effect. Batching order is a huge deal, okay? Where normally if we're mixing clay, you usually just dump in this and dump in that and dump in whatever. Well, actually, you can add your material systemically, and it will be much better. So, again, sorry, that might have been loud. That you can start with the water, add your montmorillonites, your V-gum, your bentonite, if you're using that. Then you add in a portion of your clay, and then you add in your feldspar, okay? And if you can do this as a slurry before you plastic mix, then that's great, because what you then get is that the clay keeps the feldspar suspended in the water, Okay, and you could even do this in your plastic mixer. Just have your plastic mix guy dump in the water, add in the bentonite, add in some clay. I usually say about 20% of your clay, and then the feldspar, and it's still basically watery, and just hit it with a paint mixer, on a drill, just to get it distributed. So that way, the feldspar, when you add in the rest of the clay minerals that you add pack themselves around the feldspar particle instead of trying to shove everything together, because a plastic mix is really ineffective as a way to distribute the materials evenly, which is why you see slumping and cracking and all that. And I'll unmute you so you can have a follow-up if you have. I didn't unmute you yet. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, the one problem with that is we buy 600-pound super sacks of pre-mixed clay.
Oh yeah, you're screwed.
Yeah. I was trying to convince our process engineer to just run a batch of filter cake as tile clay, and I promised him a lot of issues would go away.
Yep, it will.
Yep.
It's the same problem. My wife's old tile company, they did exactly the same thing. They bought a truckload of pre-batch super sacks every week. And dry mixing is a rather ineffective method of mixing. I like to say it's like making a wedding cake with a toothpick. You can't mix it that effectively because there are so many particles. Like I said, billions and billions does not even begin to describe how many particles are in 1 pound of clay, much less a 500-pound batch, a 2,000-pound batch. You need that kind of processing, and that's why all of these big industries that are using clay products are using slurry mixing, filter pressing, because you just get better clay. Go ahead.
Yeah, we do have the filter press, and thank God.
And that's great. The fact that you don't see the issues with the filter press clay should be enough to convince your people, but, your people.
Yeah, they're stuck on the things that they've learned in the past, which necessarily aren't always true. But maybe one day they'll get there.
Keep working on them.
Yeah, just chipping away. Next up, water. You said water doesn't really affect anything other than the way the clay platelets move, and typically adds to workability. I kind of have to dispute that because it does cause a negative effect if our clay doesn't move the right way when we put it through our processing equipment.
How so?
So our pug mill, it's a vacuum chambered pug mill. If the clay is too soft, and this is of course a completely arbitrary measurement because the way we measure it is garbage. But if it does come out too soft based on that reading, it will back up inside the vacuum chamber and kind of roll in on itself, start adding in all these spirals and things. Too hard, and I forget what it does when it's too hard, but it doesn't extrude well.
Yeah, it gets stuck in the final extrusion chamber.
Yeah. There is a sweet spot of moisture content that is actually valuable, but I get what you mean in terms of studio pottery. Who cares?
Right. Well, and those are inherently industrial processes, which is why I mentioned that industrial clays tend to have higher density. I would be interested to see what your density is, just to compare and contrast that versus a hand-forming clay. And a lot of this context is based on a hand-forming clay, but that there is a correlation between soft and hard clay. You're right about that. Okay, but what I would say is that the real problem is that hard or soft isn't going to make performance better or worse. It can cause those issues that you can see as a result, but you're not going to suddenly make your clay awesome by adding in more water. It's not going to make it not crack, not do this, not do that. You may like it more, it may handle machines differently, but the same way of you can't take certain clays and just throw them in a ram press and expect that it's going to suddenly survive the ram press. It's going to crack and warp and squish out everywhere and all of that. So it really depends. But I concede your point.
All right. Finally, got one.
One.
What was the next? Where did I want to go with that? Oh, I did find a neat thing. Just kind of a tip if anyone wants to, spend the money for it on mixing. There you go. From McMaster, inline mixers, piping. If you ever end up pumping fluids or anything, mix some more, and when you think you're done, mix more. Go.
Well, it's the same with a V mixer. Do you have a V mixer?
A V mixer? Explain. Maybe I do.
Hold on. I'm Googling. MasterCard doesn't have one. Let me find one from another source. A V mixer is the best possible mixer you could have for dry mixing. Here's the image results. And this is literally a cylinder cut at a 45-degree angle. Hold on, I'll post it in the chat. Cancel. Chat. And if you need to do a dry mix, this is the best way to do it. Where you take a cylinder, you cut it at a 45, and then it spins off axis. So every time it comes up and over, the material splits in half. And then it comes back up again, and that material splits in half and up and splits in half, and it just keeps doing that. If you have to dry mix, this is the only effective way of dry mixing, particularly. But it's not great.
Yeah, better than what's out there. Well, better than what we have anyway.
Right. It really depends on what you want to do with dry mixing, what part of your process. Buying super sacks of processed clay, you guys should demand more from Laguna, but they're not going to do anything.
No, we get... I pulled out bits of stainless metal from bags of clay before. We had barite tainted clay for 6 months, ruined tons of product. Yeah, that's right. Big manufacturers do not care.
No. Trikina, my wife's old company, was Laguna's largest customer for a long time, and they threatened to walk away, and Laguna let them walk away, and they went to Standard. And Standard was moderately better, but none of them particularly care. Because this is going out into the public, so I don't want to say, but you guys know how I feel about big companies. The big clay companies.
No, you. How do packing efficiency and green packing density correlate? Because those are two values on that chart. Are they the same thing, or are they different?
They're essentially the same. That the density is literally the density. The problem with packing efficiency is that as you have to have a percentage, you have to set what the maximum is, and that is arbitrarily set. I just say that the maximum density for a clay is 2.5, and then the packing efficiency is calculated based on that concept, whereas green packing density is the actual density of the material. So I like green packing density more, but you get them both the same way. It's the same calculation.
I think I have microphone here.
Yeah.
A little iPod.
Yeah, I was about to kick you out of class. I can hear you.
Oh, good. Thank you. I think that may be it. I posted a lot of questions and a lot of things on the message board.
I think I answered most of them. There were a few of them I ignored because I knew they were coming up again.
Yeah. Well, the ones you did answer, you just said we'll get there.
Yeah, pretty much, because, I have nothing to say to you, Peter. Our relationship has come... Well, no, because we were talking about penetrometers and Robin had asked about the 3D printer. That's tough. Oh, the aging of clay. We'll talk about it some more. The scale. Yeah, man, the 3D printing. I wish that was a better thing. Some materials just are not made to be printed. And clay is just inherently one of them, just because of the properties that make it so wonderful don't work with the way 3D printers work, at least with an existing 3D printing technology. You know, that there's now 3 types of 3D printers. Only one of them is really clay applicable, though. Okay. And so that becomes tricky. The 3 that I am aware of, I should say, is that one, as I mentioned, the only way that I'm aware now of clay printing is that you literally have a slip trailer, so you've got a nozzle that lays out a ribbon of clay, of slip, okay, in a pattern, and then the floor drops out, and then it adds a second layer of slip. But you're then left with something that is the consistency of a bead of slip. You can't get in surface detail or anything like that. The next kind of 3D printer is the same thing, but it uses a plastic. And so you build up these layers, but the plastic can print very efficiently. The next kind of 3D printer that I'm aware of uses plaster, and I sort of mentioned that the benefits of plaster, where it literally actually, it's a spray of water, and the water jet sprays into a bed of plaster. And so that builds up layers and layers of plaster, and then everything else remains as a powder, which is pretty neat. Then there's a new kind that's just come out that uses a laser to harden a resin, but again, that's not a ceramically applicable method. But you can print plaster. Just saying. But again, that it comes down to how you think about how we process materials. We all want the Star Trek thing where you say to the computer, give me a cup, and then a cup just magically appears, but you know that we still have to process our materials some way. It's like saying, oh, well, it's a bummer that you can't 3D print a ceramic. Well, yeah, but you still have to fire the ceramic. I mean, that there are still process steps that we have to include. So maybe the process for 3D printing ceramic is you don't print the object, but that you print the mold, maybe. And so that you can do it that way, or you print the blank in resin or one of these other materials, and then you make a mold from that. So it's just about how many steps you can eliminate and how refined you can make that object. But like I said, I didn't say any of this. I have to keep my friends' secrets.
Yeah, mum's the word.
Mm.
Yeah, I got nothing. The last lecture was geology and minerals. I think I asked all my questions last time.
Okay. Well, starting tomorrow is chemistry. Today's chemistry. Tomorrow's chemistry. Tomorrow's chemistry. Mm-hmm. So again, for you guys repeating, unfortunately, there is more newish information. After that, though, we get into clays, which is where the green part of this class gets really fun. We'll talk about clays, clay type, green packing densities. Then we're going to talk about feldspars and fillers, sort of all the fillers together, whether it's grog or fiberglass or paper. After that, we will get into processing, defects, and firing. Okay, and those are all sort of huge subjects. So right now, geez, I hope I get through all the materials really quickly. I'm really hoping it doesn't come that I get to the end of the class and I have to do a dump of extra lectures just to get the information out there. But yeah, it's a lot of information about materials. I've done 2 classes just on clays, 2 full classes just on clay, and I haven't gotten to feldspar yet. So I like that you rub your hands in excitement. That's great. As long as it's not rubbing your hands in boredom and pulling your hair out in frustration.
All good.
Okay, good.
Oh, I get that out before I come to class.
My work here is done.
Well, one other question.
Yeah.
What happens if you throw a flux in a clay? Just like a pure flux, like lithium carbonate, potassium carbonate, which is a thought I had to do one, other than the fact that they're horribly soluble.
Yep. Solubility City. It depends on what you want to do. The secret of Egyptian paste, if you guys have ever heard of Egyptian paste before, which is generally considered a self-glazing clay. I had a student do a study on it last year of sort of going, what is the actual notion behind Egyptian paste? And what we actually found is that you can make Egyptian paste out of virtually any clay body. Because all that Egyptian paste is actually doing is that it is mixed with a highly soluble material. Generally soda ash. Sometimes it's literally just table salt. And what they actually do is that it is made to dissolve in the water, precipitate on the surface, and interact with the surface silica to make a glaze. It's actually literally making sodium silicate. The glaze is weak, the clay is terrible to work with, but it does work. The other thing that you can do, where this happens all the time, is with carbon trapping. So a high temperature clay, a carbon trap porcelain is literally a porcelain with up to 10% soda ash in there. The sodium deposits itself. I mean, the interesting thing about having a soluble salt in a clay body, so if I've got a tile here, right, and say it's full of soda ash, as the soda ash dissolves, or I'm sorry, as the clay dries, the soda ash deposits itself where there is the highest exposed surface area, so on the edges, okay? Because the clay can evaporate, the water can evaporate on the edge here and on the face here. So the edges get this sheen, this crystallized soda ash on them. When you then fire that up to high temperature, this is a highly volatilized gas, so if you have a heavy reduction or fire in a heavy atmosphere, this then traps the carbon, so you get this black burning on the edges, which, you know, some people like, if that's what they want.
We had a Shino that was really effective with,
Right.
coupled with paraffin wax. You could draw out your shapes, let it sit for, I don't know, a week, and the salts would migrate where the wax wasn't.
Oh, yeah, right. Right. Well, and that's seeding Shinos is a classic thing. If you look at Warren McKenzie, oh my goodness, who is the man?
Davis.
Malcolm Davis. Thank you. Jeez, what am I thinking? Yeah, Malcolm Davis's Shinos. He'll often have patterns of, you know, a willow reed or a cattail, and that's literally just painted on soda ash, and that will be black. And that's just forcing carbon trapping wherever you're drawing that. That's interesting with the wax. I've never heard that technique before, but yeah, that's smart. You know, yeah, I did some studies with Wayne Higby last year where he's trying to make a carbon trap porcelain, and yeah, you just take your clay and dump soda ash into it. You're gonna flux the hell out of that clay body as well because you get some residual sodium. But yeah, you get beautiful. You put it into a heavy reduction, yeah, you get beautiful carbon trapping.
What happens if you put it in an oxidation?
Not much, just
Not
overfluxed. You need that release of carbon to get trapped into that specific composition. But that's what the Egyptian paste is that in oxidation. It's literally just so much sodium that it just deposits itself on the surface. But it's a very weak glass, obviously not food safe. But also the clay becomes hard to work with because sodium, and I'm so conflicted about saying this because I've been going through a lot of old readings to pull stuff up, and I found some documents that say that sodium is not the active material in a dispersant. I'm not, and it comes from an old article from Carty, and I don't believe it. So I need to look into it because every single dispersant we use is based in sodium. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, even the Darvin one, except for one of them.
Well, two of them. Darvan C and Darvan 821A are ammonia based. And we'll talk about that when we talk about dispersants of why they are that way.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's it. I don't want to keep you all too late.
Ja, das gut. Okay, well, let's see. Lecture tomorrow on chemistry. Friday, I did mention that unfortunately there is a Christmas lecture. It's a Christmas miracle because I've already recorded it, so I get to have Christmas and you all get to sit through class. So I'm going to go enjoy my goose. And I hope you all have a wonderful holiday or time off or time in the studio. There is going to be downtime. I put it on the announcements, but I think like Saturday night, so like the night of the 26th, and it's just supposed to be in the overnight, Blackboard is supposed to go down. So you will not have access to class, but it should come up after that. Don't kill yourself. For those of you here, Peter, do you need to take the exams?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it for credit, just in case.
The midterm.
Also want to make you grade it.
The midterm will be going up next Wednesday, which would be like the 20-somethingth. For Robin and Sarah and Ted, I don't care. I mean, if you want to take it, knock yourselves out, but I'm not going to make you. You can take it if you want, but I'm not going to hold you to it or make you do it. So, I know you guys are here to learn, and that's all you care about. So, if you want to take the exam, Peter wants to act like he's all official, like he's an actual student, because he wants to, show off his bona fides or something. But for the rest of you, I'm not going to force you to study for anything. So the midterm will be up on Wednesday the 30th. There won't be a lecture that day, though, so that will be a down day, so you can catch up and all of that type of stuff. But we will have a meeting next Tuesday, so we'll have a hangout before then anyway. So I can answer all Peter's questions about what he's going to have to write on the exam.
I did pretty good last time.
I think you did fine. It was an acceptable C-. Still passing.
The two greatest words in the English language. Default.
Oh, the Simpson quotes are coming out. It must be getting punchy. Okay, folks. Any other questions? Robin, Sarah, Ted, you good?
Fine.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for a good hangout. Everybody have a wonderful holiday or weekend or whatever you're doing, everything or nothing. And I will see you guys next Tuesday.
All right. Make
Thank
good life
you.
choices.
Good night.